What should Govia Thameslink Railway fleet look like by 2030? Govia Thameslink Railway operates 4 trains. These are Gatwick Express, Great Northern, Southern and Thameslink. Some rules I will follow are 1. Realistic electrification projects, 2. Availability of trains, 3. No standalone multiple units. Gatwick Express operates 4 services between London, Victoria and Brighton via Gatwick Airport. The Class 387s of Gatwick Express would be withdrawn from Gatwick Express services and moved to Southern services. The Gatwick Express would gain a fleet of dual voltage units designed to meet the Gatwick Express requirements set in the 387s. These units would be built by Alstom. The Class 442s and 460s were much better units for Gatwick Express since they had more to offer to passengers. The new units would have similar features to the old 460s and with the 100 mph units to allow for if the line speeds on the Brighton main line were reinstated to 100 miles per hour. Now moving on to Great Northern, which operates services along the East Coast Main Line and its branches. The Class 387s built by Bombardier in the mid-2010s in service of Great Northern would be retained and moved to Southern. These would be joined by Heathrow Express's Class 387s, and the Class 387s of Great Northern are not the best units for the services which they work. The Class 387s of Govia Thameslink Railway are limited to 100 miles per hour on the East Coast Main Line, which does cause issues on the Welwyn Garden City to Nedworth section, where the East Coast Main Line drops down from 4 to 2 tracks. Also, the 387s would be better used by Southern since it allows Southern to use them on their long distance and regional routes. The British Rail Class 717 to 0 cities would be retained and upgraded. Some of their upgrades would allow them to be 110 mph units, fitting nicer seats with a similar length of comfort as the Intercity 70 seats. Also, there would be an increase of frequency on the Northern City line from 4 trains per hour per direction to 8 trains per hour per direction, so that passengers on to all stations between Moorgate and Welwyn Garden City and Moorgate to Stevenage via Hertford East would get an every 15-minute service pattern, which is considered turn up and go, with the installation of European Train Control System, which is currently underway. This will make it very much more possible, and with the recent platform 5 at Stevenage, the grey subject the Hertford Loop line services from the East Coast Main Line at the Stevenage end. The British Rail Class 730s would be introduced onto Great Northern because of their 110 mph speed limit, which is possible on the East Coast Main Line only. The British Rail Class 730s are better designed for ECS than the 387s. The 387s have been retrofitted with European Train Control System. It's not the best. Also, the 387s would allow for greater capacity on Great Northern routes. The 730s would allow for ending of use on 700s on Great Northern route services. Now moving on to Southern, which operates services on most routes in Sussex and some routes in Hampshire, Kent and Greater London. The Class 171s of Southern would be withdrawn and replaced by a fleet of 4-coach tri-mode Alstom Adventurers, which would be third rail, hourly and diesel. This is because the 171s no longer meet the needs of the customers, as well as the replacement of the fleet of 17171s with a fleet of 30 tri-mode Adventurers allow for improved timetabling, frequency and capacity on those Southern's diesel services, which are Uxbridge, Grant, Knight and Martin. Another advantage of the rotation of the 171s with Adventures is that Southern have a fully ending gangway seat, which is ideal for some of the stations they call it. Also, extra adventures will allow in length will allow for restored Brighton to Ashford international services. These units will permit the Uckfield branch to go from an hourly service to an every half an hour service pattern, which has greatly increased economic activity in the Uckfield area. The 171s will descend to another truck rail at the Eastwall. Also, the adventures of the rails make use of the current electrification to reduce carbon emissions, so that running to Brighton instead of terminating at Eastbourne would not increase emissions from the train since they're using the third rail, which is weak in terms of power draw available, but still can provide enough traction power. The Class 377 would be retained and moved to work for more Greater London and short distance services. This would be to make up for the lost capacity from the withdrawn 48455-8 and 2313s. The Class 377 moving to short distance work would allow for improvement on suburban services which got cut because of the withdrawal of the 313s and 455-8s. The Class 377s being used on more metro services to help deal with overcrowding on the metro services, as well as one time. The 387 would still work the Brighton to Worthing, Hoe and Hoe shuttles, the Brighton to Lewis and Brighton to Seaford services, and a few other short distance West Coast and East Coast services. 12 Class 387s from Heathrow Express, 18 Class 387s from Gatwick Express, and 39 Class 387s would be used on some long distance services such as London Victoria to Southampton Central, Gatwick Airport to Rugby, which would be an extension to the current East Croydon to Watford Junction services. These services would operate every 30 minutes instead of every 60 minutes. The Brighton to all services would be operated by 387s. Some other routes would use 387s. These would displace the 377s on more metro services and branches. The 387s on the West Coast mainland could get up to 110 miles per hour because the hourly, which is more rugged, which would reduce the capacity loss from some services, since they'd now be able to better keep up with the faster services, since they'd be operating 10 miles per hour faster than the 377s. Now time for Govia Thameslink Railway's last round, which is Thameslink, who operates services on the Midland Main Line, also known as the Deadpan Line, East Coast Main Line South, Brighton Main Line, Chatham Main Line, Sutton Loop, which is better known as the Wall of Death by drivers, and some other routes. Finally, the Class 700 would be retained, however the number of reduced-length units and full-length units would be changed to reflect the increase and demand. In some extra units would be ordered, with some of the reduced-length units being extended to full-length units. The Class 700 would be upgraded to have 110 miles per hour running, make sure they cause a lower impact on parking, as the East Coast Main Line digital program happening, which will see the East Coast Main Line having European train control system and upgraded to 140 miles per hour on the fast between Quincy Park and Stoke tunnels near Grantham, with a future being to install ETCS and 140 miles per hour running up to North Allerton. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to the Train Spotter from Darkshire.